Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tanya van Biesen, Canadian Club Toronto President and your host. Canada's Podium provides a platform for political leaders to connect with voters. With Ontario's provincial election on February 27th fast approaching, candidates are working very hard to share their visions for the province's future. Key issues are dominating the headlines. Many of these you would be very familiar with. Slow economic growth, challenges with housing availability and affordability, underinvestment in infrastructure, strain on the healthcare system, and of course the threat of a trade war with the U.S. Today, our guest of honour joins us to share her vision for building a stronger, more resilient Ontario. Now, before I introduce her, I want to acknowledge our season sponsors, the Canadian Bankers Association, and our official airline sponsor, Air Canada. I would also like to recognize Canada's Forest Trust, who partners with the club to reduce our carbon footprint by planting a small forest in our honour. Thank you all for your support. Today, I'm delighted to welcome students from the Political Science Department at U of T. Thank you to OMERS for sponsoring this table, and we are so glad to have you here with us. We hope that you will have some great questions for the leader. I have a few club announcements to share with you. Please visit our website at canadianclub.org for information about upcoming events and membership. And if you've missed an event, no worries at all, because we offer a fantastic on-demand service to catch up anytime. We always appreciate your support on social media, so feel free to share your experience from today's event on your favorite platform. And asking questions is a key part of the Canadian Club experience. We encourage you to take this opportunity to engage with the Ontario Liberal Party leader. So you'll see that there are Q&A cards available on your tables. Please simply fill them out, and our club staff will collect them and bring them to the stage during our discussion. And for those joining remotely, you can submit a question by clicking the red Q&A button on the right side of your screen when we open the floor. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Bonnie Crombie, leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. With a background spanning both business and politics, Bonnie brings to her role a variety of experiences in leadership, economic development, and public service. Before entering provincial politics, she served as the Mayor of Mississauga for nearly a decade, where she focused on economic growth, infrastructure, and community development. Her time in both the public and private sectors give her a broad perspective on the challenges and opportunities facing Ontario today. As leader of the Ontario Liberal Party, Bonnie is engaging with communities and businesses across this province to discuss key economic and policy issues. Today, she joins us to share her vision for Ontario. Ms. Crombie, Canada's Podium is yours.
Oh yeah, I was supposed to give it a beat. Oh, that explains why everyone was running towards me. It was the stage. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to do this TED Talk style today. I hope that makes you comfortable. Thank you for joining me here at the Canadian Club, a place where old traditions, like the flag, like a toast to Canada, feel just a little bit deeper and a little bit more meaningful today, right? At a moment when our economy and our sovereignty are threatened by our closest neighbor. We all feel a little prouder to stand tall for Canada. And I know we're all going to cheer a little harder tonight when watching the game against the U.S., right? I even managed to get some downtime tonight so I can watch. I'm really happy about that. But Doug Ford sees this moment differently. He chose this critical moment to call a cynical winter election, to try to avoid talking about his problematic record here in Ontario. Our team has worked really hard to make sure that the issues that matter to the real people have stayed in the spotlight in this campaign. Healthcare, education, the cost of living. And now, with just 1 week to go in this campaign, this is our chance to change the direction of the province. This is your chance to vote for something better, for a premier who will get the basics right, for an economy that works, to fix the deadly crisis in our healthcare system. After 7 years of Doug Ford, Ontario is suffering. Our healthcare is worse by every measure. 2.5 million people are waiting for a doctor. Thousands are dying while waiting for surgery or diagnostic care. And because our population is getting sicker, our productivity is suffering too. Everyone in this room knows that there is an economic impact to a broken healthcare system, that our economy right now just isn't prepared for more blows. Not from a population that can't get care, and not from Trump's tariffs. Since Doug Ford took office 7 years ago, every single metric of economic success has gotten worse in Ontario. Business confidence is at the lowest it's been in a generation. It's hard to attract investment to a province where workers are worried about gridlock, they can't afford to buy a home, and they can't find a family doctor. Ontario would be the 5th poorest state if we were actually forced to join Donald Trump's USA. We'd be down there with Arkansas and Alabama. Think about that. We've lost hundreds of thousands of jobs. It's the worst unemployment rate in a decade, especially in manufacturing and in construction. In fact, we have the second highest unemployment rate in the country. But youth unemployment is the worst right here in Ontario, in all of Canada. We're building fewer homes than the other major provinces are, and our young people can't afford the rent, let alone afford a home. So they're leaving. They're going to other provinces. They're also going south to the United States. Doug Ford likes to talk about protecting Ontario, but he has been neglecting Ontario. Under his watch, Ontario is falling further and further behind every other major province. BC, Alberta, Quebec, they're all doing a better job of helping businesses succeed. That is Doug Ford's Ontario. Now, my mom always said to me, you often hear me talk about my mom, Veronica, and if you're a Facebook friend of mine or see me on Instagram, you'll know that she turned 89 on Tuesday, yep. I sent her the link as we were sitting down, and hopefully she's watching. Hi, Mom. But you know what she always taught me? She said, Bonnie, if you don't like something, change it. So that's why I'm here. It's time to change the direction in Ontario. So here's what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to grow our economy. I'm going to create the conditions for you to succeed. Doug Ford promised to cut red tape, but he didn't get it done. He didn't end interprovincial trade barriers. He didn't create a free market, and he didn't cut taxes. Instead, he's created a government that's run by insiders for insiders, and he's selling Ontario to the highest bidder. It's not just Ontario Place and the Science Centre. Doug Ford is quietly selling off our public healthcare system. He has purposely neglected our public system to the point where people are forced to rely on private care. And that's not the Canadian way. We are so proud of our strong public healthcare system. It's something we brag about when we're abroad, right? I talk about it all the time. Well, we have public healthcare. Let me be perfectly clear. Ontario healthcare is public healthcare, and I will stop the backdoor privatization and fix our public system so that people aren't forced to use their credit cards to pay for care. And I will make sure that every single person in Ontario has access to a family doctor. That is my promise. And I will not let American-style healthcare invade our province. It's not who we are as Canadians, and it's not who I am as a leader. Healthcare is the single most important job of any premier. It's the biggest single line item in the budget. We can't have growth if people aren't healthy. But right now, neither our economy nor our healthcare system is working as it should. When we take our parents or our kids to the emergency room, they're waiting 22 hours to get help. You could drive to Winnipeg faster. It's almost an entire day just to see a doctor in our hospitals. And every day I hear more heartbreaking stories about how hallway healthcare is getting worse, not better. And how people are being treated on chairs. A woman having a miscarriage in a waiting room, in a hallway, in an auditorium, on a chair. People suffering from the complications of abdominal surgery on a chair. Having a serious heart attack on a chair. These are the very real consequences of a premier who has the wrong priorities. My priorities are very different from this. I'm going to level with you. I'm not going to build you a fantasy tunnel under the 401. Sorry. But I will get you a family doctor, okay? And I will end hallway healthcare. And today, I'm going to make this promise to you. I will cover mental health care under OHIP. Because mental health care is health. And when our kids are suffering with record-breaking levels of anxiety and depression, eating disorders, and suicide, we can't sit back and just hope things get better, right? As business leaders, you see the effects firsthand. Your productivity, right, is directly related to mental health in your workforce. You're providing extra help for your employees, backfilling people on leave with mental health challenges, and seeing the effects of the mental health and addiction crisis in your own lives. We need to take care of each other, and we need to fill the massive gap in our healthcare system. So when I'm premier, we will wrap mental health care into OHIP and improve access to the mental health and the addiction support that so many of our friends, our loved ones, desperately need. I know this matters because, like so many of you, this crisis is very personal for me. Okay? My dad was an addict. Yeah. He was an alcoholic. And the funny thing about alcoholics is that for the people who don't know them well and who don't see them after the fun ends and when the lights go on, they can be very charming, right? The life of the party. I know my dad was, at least according to the stories I heard about. He was the outgoing one, the gregarious one, the party guy. Everyone wanted to be around him. He even charmed my mom. He used to get on one knee and serenade her to Elvis Presley singing, "Can't Help Falling in Love with You." Melted her heart, right? Yeah. And then I came along. And what was once charming suddenly wasn't anymore. Because alcoholics, when they don't have an audience, they can get mean, right? And my mom, in 1963, knew she had to get out and get me out. So we left, and we moved in with my grandparents. My grandfather worked as a janitor at the Globe and Mail. I know you know that. And they saved up to put a down payment on a big house in the High Park area, and they rented out rooms. It was a rooming house. Okay? I didn't want for anything when I lived there. I had a lot of love. But my dad wanted to see me, so my mom used to dress me up in my prettiest dress, frilliest dress, bows in my hair, you know, how moms do it. She sat me down on the top step of our porch. She says, "Daddy will be here soon, don't worry." And I waited. And I waited. I waited for him. Felt like forever. And then Mom would say, "Honey, Daddy called, and he can't make it today, so why don't you get changed and go play with your friends?" But he never called. And eventually I just stopped waiting. And in his absence from my life, it was scarred over, right? You just move on. You fill it. But one day when I was 40, I remember it like yesterday, my dad, I got a call. He was living at the Seton House. That's not too far from here. And he was dying. And they wanted me to come see him. His addiction that had taken away his family and his home was now claiming his life too. I went and I saw him. And I said goodbye more to the idea of the father I didn't have and the person that I really never knew, because my mom remarried and another man adopted me and he raised me. And I just turned 65. And on every milestone, I still wonder if, what if my dad had gotten help? Would he have been there for me? What kind of dad would he have been like? What would life have been like? What kind of grandfather would he have made to my kids? So the guy who was the life of the party passed, and I'll never know, neither will my kids, what kind of grandfather he would have been. And I'm telling you this story not because it's unique, but because it's not. Right? Because all across Ontario, there are stories like mine. More than 13,000 people have died in the opioid crisis over the last 7 years. Yesterday, I connected with somebody you all watch on TV, and his aunt is a was a girlfriend of mine in high school, and she lost her daughter to the opioid crisis too. We see it every single day. Every single one of these stories, they start with someone who needed help but couldn't get it. They didn't get help. And they end with a parent, or a child, or a grandparent, or a brother, or a sister missing someone they once truly loved. It leaves a big hole. Wondering about that person that they really never got to know and what their life would have been like, right? So yes, we need to fix mental health and the addiction crisis. Not because it's easy, as just saying those words, but because right now, here in Ontario, there's no plan. No plan and no sufficient funding. And in a province as rich as this one, we can and we must do better. So I know that we can change the direction of this province for the better. I have the leadership, the business experience required to do the work to make that happen. Because in Ontario, when we all work together, and we're going to work together, we do great things. We build cars. We invent smartphones. And we build highways through a frozen, rich northern landscape, right? But first, we've got to win. I know we're the underdogs in this race, but I also can feel the momentum shifting. I can feel the wind in our sails, and I feel the desire for change growing door after door after door. And together, we can change the government, and we are going to fight like heck to win. And that's why this week, I reached out to the people who voted for other parties in the past, and I said, I'm humbly asking them this time around to vote Ontario's Liberals, because together, we can change the government, and we can do more for people. A family doctor, lower taxes, removing the HSD from our home heating and our hydro, and finally, building homes that you and your kids, and mine, can afford. It's time to get the basics right in Ontario, and that's why we're here. That's what Ontario Liberals are fighting for. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Do you have a preference here?
I think I'm supposed
You're supposed to sit side? Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay. I don't know why I bothered to prepare questions, because there are so many questions from the audience. So I just want to thank everybody for their enthusiasm. First of all, thank you. Thank you for your remarks.
Oh, my pleasure.
And there's a great deal of interest in many of the topics that you spoke about. So, but I would be remiss in not, first of all, thank you for sharing that story about your family and your dad.
I thought it was an important one to share. I really think it's important that people get to know their leaders as people. I mean, we all have policies, and I know you're well aware of all our policies, or hopefully you are, but get to know us a little bit as people. And I also think that, Tanya, if I may, it shows an important contrast in leadership. You know, maybe I worked hard. I was always taught, get a good education and work hard and you'll be successful, and that formula worked for me. It doesn't work for people anymore. And it's certainly, as you well know in the debate, I pointed out that the Premier had a kind of a different upbringing, right? A big political dynasty they didn't want for anything, and kind of had a company handed to him. Really nice if you can get that. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you. I had to work for it. So I'm very proud of what I've earned, but I did work very hard to achieve what I have. Thank you.
No. Maybe we could talk a bit about this announcement you made around covering mental health care in OHIP. So tell us more about the how around that. And it actually, Bonnie, ties into a few questions people have about healthcare, right? How do we, there's a shortage of doctors, there's a shortage of mental health professionals. So covering it, amazing. Bringing it to people when they need it is the other component. So talk to us about how you would do that.
So the first thing is we really can't afford not to do it, right? Let's start right there, because we have a crisis, a productivity crisis. There's a crisis in Ontario today. You know, when we look at the costs, it could be as much as $1 billion once it's up and running. But I'm also looking at the federal transfer payments that have been made that this government sits on, billions of dollars of healthcare transfer payments that could easily be incorporated to help out through the OHIP system. So we have to use the money we have, but we also know that there's a lot of waste in the system. We know about the waste. I think you all know about the waste. And certainly we've heard about the booze doggle, the $2 billion to get you beer and wine a year sooner, and the $2 billion to help a foreign-owned spa at Ontario Place. And by the way, that's more than this government announced in their healthcare plan, which was, I think, $1.5 billion. They gave Therma Spa $2 billion. So we know, and as well, your pre-election check, and I know you like them. Of course, everybody likes to get money back from the government. It's your money at the end of the day. Nice to top up your groceries, your rent, 1 month. But what do you do next month, right? That came at a price tag of $3 billion, which coincidentally is the price of our healthcare plan. So you won't get a check, but you will get a family doctor. And with our tax cut and removing the HST off your home heating and hydro, you'll save $1,150 to boot. So we'll put that back in your pocket too. That's savings every year, not a one-time check.
So several of our audience members agree with you that a healthy economy requires healthy people. How do we incentivize more doctors to become family physicians and to open comprehensive practices that they don't want to ultimately leave?
Well, I think you've used the operative word, incentivize them. Let's pay them properly. They've been frozen since before 2018, and other costs are rising, so what they take home is shrinking. Many of them have moved to other disciplines that, quite frankly, are lucrative or become hospitalists, whatever it might be. So to open a medical school is a long-term project, but to double the number of spaces in our residency programs is much faster. Do you know that every other province has double the number of residency places, spots, that we have? Double. So we'll double them right away, right? We're going to attract more foreign-trained doctors. Now, when I say that, I'm also talking about some of your friends and family members who may have gone to the US or to the UK or Poland, where I'm from, to get their medical training and can't get back. How many of you have heard of that? You know, they can't come back. So we got to get more foreign trained back in the system. And yes, and then we need to get, you know, more through that mentorship program. The official term is the Practice Ready Ontario. That's vitally important that we increase the numbers that go through that program quickly. So all in all, we'll attract, retain 3,100 doctors, pay them better. We've got to attract them back into family medicine, right? And then there's those that are retiring. We're going to incentivize them to stay a little longer. And then I have this patriotic pledge as well, that if you're practicing across the border, maybe you're in Detroit, maybe you're in Buffalo, maybe you're in upstate New York, maybe you've been waiting for an opportunity to come back home because you don't like what you see in the United States. We're going to give you an incentive. We're going to pay your moving costs, about $150,000, as an incentive to come back. And of course, you already know that if they do their training and commit long-term service agreement to spending time up in the north or in smaller communities, they get their tuition paid. We'll enhance that program as well. We need more doctors in remote areas, in underserviced areas. It's not enough to be just online, virtual care, and particularly for Francophone Ontario, improve those opportunities as well to serve those needs. And then, of course, not only doctors, but nurses and PSWs, and pay them a living wage too. So that's the plan. And that's where the $3 billion will go towards. And it's just a massive effort to bring more family doctors back in, whether they're in a team practice or they're single sole practitioners. And the one complaint I always hear from them is the administrative burden. You know, they don't like to be business people. They want to treat patients. They don't want to do hiring, firing, right? So that's part of it. Do you know that they spend actually half their day doing paperwork, updating their files on you, all their visits? So we'll help them use something called AI Scribe, and we're going to eliminate something you probably eliminated a decade ago, a fax machine. Do you know doctors all still use fax machines, and when you call them and ask for a prescription, they have to fax it to the pharmacy for it to be legitimate? We'll get rid of those, and we're going to open up a centralized referral system. Because you know that doctors spend a lot of time after you visited them getting on the phone to their friends in med school, their colleagues, and saying, hey, I got a patient, can you see them, when can you see them, setting up appointments for you. You eliminate that. Put it on a central referral system, get rid of fax machines, use AI Scribe, reduce their burden, and then they too can see more patients.
Okay, it sounds awesome.
It can happen.
It also
political
sounds
will.
expensive.
$3 billion.
So talk to us, maybe let's, because you can't cut your way to greatness. So talk to us about how we're going to build this economy, how we're going to grow. What are the growth measures that you're thinking about and that you're going to put in place?
So look, it's a question of political will to get this done. It just has to become a priority. You know, you heard me say in the debate the other night, what's leadership to you? It's about having a vision. We have a vision. It's about having integrity, right? And it's about delivering, right? Implementing your vision by having the right priorities. And these are our priorities: to deliver health care to you, to cut your taxes, take the HST off your home heating and hydro, and to build more homes. We're going to kickstart the home building community, development community as well, because we're going to make it cheaper to build and cheaper to buy a home by $170,000. That's not bad. We got a lot of ideas on how to use surplus land and landfill, infill rather, opportunities to build more housing, right? We're going to remove the land transfer tax. That's another $13,000 off. If you're a senior, a first-time home buyer, or a not-for-profit, that'll kickstart development. We need to attract investment. And as I mentioned in my talk, it's really tough to attract business to a province that faces immense gridlock, traffic congestion. If a company comes here, their employees can't afford the rent or the housing, not like in other places they could go, and they can't get a family doctor. So my view is that once we have the basics in place, we can attract that investment. Now, Tanya, I was very good at this in Mississauga. I attracted hundreds of millions of dollars of investment from companies that wanted to land in Mississauga. We created jobs, we created growth. We had the second highest municipal assessment because of our strong business community in all of Ontario. We were the third largest city and had the second strongest economy. And that came from attracting investment, and some of that means meeting CEOs, having relationships with them, going to those opportunities and meeting eyeball to close deal. I want to tell you just one story because it's my favorite. Many of you may know the Bio Conference. All the biotech companies, biopharma companies go. I attended one year. It was one of my first ones, I think. And I met a company, a Brazilian company, Biolab, and the team said, don't bother with them. They just signed a deal with New Jersey. They're giving them 10 years tax-free. I said, that can't be attractive. That's a race to the bottom. I said, I'm going to set up a meeting with them anyways. And I talked to them about how in fewer than 10 years, they would be further ahead in Canada. And I talked about our tax system, and they said, oh, but that healthcare system of yours is too expensive. And I said, give me an opportunity to do a presentation. Went back and created a deck and presented to them on how our cost of living at the time was lower and our salary rates were lower. We had the most highly trained, highly skilled job force, especially in life sciences and biotech and biopharma, and how they would be further ahead, and the dollar was lower at the time. They would be much further ahead than going to New Jersey. Do you know I got a call back that evening and said, our partners want to meet you and talk to you, but you have to fly to Brazil. I said, I think we can arrange that. So, in a month later, a few months, 2 weeks later, I flew to Brazil and signed $58 million investment for Mississauga that I stole from New Jersey. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Company by company, investment after investment, you go after it. You identify areas, and I will tell you that I helped insulate. I learned it from Hazel, I'm not going to take full credit, but I learned that we had to insulate our economy. So we had 4 strong pillars we always relied on in case one sector, one industry had declined or was showing decline or was in recession. We were always buffered because we had financial industry, we had advanced manufacturing, including aerospace, we had strong life sciences, and we had IT and high tech. Okay, one more quick story, just quick. So I met Toronto Global, said, Bonnie, don't get offended, but we've got this IT company, and we're pitching them to Toronto and to Waterloo, because they're high tech. And I said, really, what are they looking for? They're looking for a highly skilled, highly talented workforce that speaks multiple languages and close to the airport. I said, come on, let me pitch, please, please. Cognizant, 2,000 employees. We got them. So it's those kinds of successes. You know, you need to insulate your economy, build up on 4 pillars to make it strong, bring in that investment, but it'll never come in if you don't set up the basics, right? And if I didn't have the best standards of living, qualities of living in Mississauga, with amenities that people enjoyed and a cost of living that people could afford, their employees could afford, you know, they weren't going to come. And that's where we have slid now. Investment not looking at Ontario anymore, going to lower cost provinces where their people can afford the homes and get the health care they need. So to grow the economy, we have to get the basics right, and that's why we're here today.
Okay, I have one question left, and I apologize because I know there are many questions, but I have one question, and we only have 4 minutes. This one question you have to answer in 2 minutes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Because then I have 2 minutes to do something else with you. But it does seize on your last point, which is, you know, we have some fundamental issues in the province, and in order to get the province working and moving, one of them is infrastructure. For those living in Toronto, certainly our transit system is of concern. So what's your plan at the provincial level to make sure that our big centers are actually moving and that people have transit that works and that is built for the future, not for the 1950s?
Yes. So first of all, we don't need a fantasy tunnel because I'll be honest with you, by the time that opens, I'll be dead. So will most of you. Now, maybe not all, but some. And it would bankrupt the province. It's a $150 billion project and effort, and it won't solve the traffic and congestion problems today. So we need an integrated transit system. We need one in every large city, as a matter of fact. And we have to look at uploading some of the costs of the operating systems of the public transit. I knew that as mayor of a great city, and because I bring that experience, I understand where the needs are. We see Toronto in deep deficit. A lot of it is because of running the TTC. Same in Ottawa with OC Transpo. But we need that connectivity. You know, so we have to make better investments in public transit. So would I open the tunnel? No, but there are alternatives to utilize the 407 for truck only, extend the 427. I don't think we need the 413 either. There are a lot of options, and a lot of them have to do with public transit. All-day two-way GO train service on the major lines, Milton and Kitchener. Kitchener's been announced, nothing done. Milton hasn't been announced. London was promised a line. Niagara was promised better service. You know, what about that Eglinton Crosstown? Are we ever going to see that open? You know, what about that Ontario line? There are a number of highways that need to be rebuilt as connectors as well, feeding in or out of Hamilton or Kitchener, et cetera. We need a regionally integrated transit system, and you know, maybe it's time for a regional body like Metrolinx to do that oversight. That's something I would certainly look at, right? We need to kickstart this because it's not, what's happening now isn't working. I mean, coming from Mississauga down to Queen's Park usually takes me an hour and a half. So sometimes we take the GO train, right? You have to. And I'm lucky, I'm fortunate that on the Lakeshore line, we get better connectivity. It's 15 to or 30-minute service, 15 minutes in rush hour, but you don't have that on the other lines. I'd also look at extending subway service, north. We already have it in Vaughan. It's not going to Markham. I'd put it into Mississauga too. But investments in public transit, large public transit infrastructure projects also kickstart the economy. So was that 2 minutes? Ish. But I think it shows you my commitment to public investment in transportation and in the infrastructure.
It does, thank you. Okay, quick lightning round.
Okay.
Morning ritual, coffee first or straight into email?
Oh my God, I have an espresso machine at my bedside.
Nice. That's nice.
I know.
Nice. Okay, what's your...
2 double espressos. And then opening up all the emails and the texts, and I clear those and read every newspaper, look at the headline, and then start getting ready. Okay, so that's that morning ritual.
Not a lot of meditation in there. Okay.
There is workout sometimes.
What's one thing your staff wishes you wouldn't bring to every meeting?
Oh, my phones. Plural, phones, plural. Put those down, Bonnie, pay attention.
Late night guilty pleasure.
Well, all my nights are late nights. I'm a night hawk. I like mornings. I love to stay up late. What's my nightly pleasure? I like sports. I hope you know that. I love physical fitness. I love, you know that I rock climb. Play pickleball, ski. I like to cook. I like to entertain. I haven't had time to do any of that in a few years, but I love to do that.
Like most of us would say Netflix, just so you know, but that's okay.
I was thinking you'd probably say a nice glass of wine, but I don't do that too much either, not anymore. I spend time with my close friends and family. Late night, let's be honest, I got binders to read. I'm not reading fiction. I got to get briefed for tomorrow.
Fair enough. Most surprising item in your briefcase or purse right now?
Well, I suppose hairspray wouldn't surprise you. I'm on a protein plan, so I have a lot of protein packs in my purse. What else can I tell you? I have so many makeup products, they take them away from me at the airport. It fills a whole bag. I don't know. None of that is a surprise to you, probably.
Okay, one last one. If you had a magic wand and could fix one Ontario issue overnight, what would it be?
Family doctors. Family doctors. Yeah. I want everybody to... may I see a show of hands? You don't have a family doctor or they're about to retire? Please, please, please. Come on. 2.5 million of you in the province. I know there's a few of you in this room. See? Every table, there are a couple people. That's the reality. And then they can follow you and you can get your medication and they know when you have an issue. It's not like going into a walk-in clinic. They don't follow you, right? We actually have a candidate that signed up to be a candidate because he loved the pledge for family doctor, because for 7 years he hasn't had one and he has some pretty complicated healthcare issues and he's been going to the same walk-in clinic for 7 years. Wow. And the guy kept saying, don't you have a family doctor? You should be going to them. You should be going to them. And he said, sadly, the family doc retired 7 years ago and I don't have anyone. And he said, okay, I'm going to sign you up as mine. But he loved the pledge and so he signed up to be a candidate and I'm really happy about that. Stephen Marguerite, thank you.
That's amazing. Bonnie, on behalf of Canadian Club Toronto, I want to thank you for the passion that you bring to your leadership role. We appreciate, of course, you coming here to share your vision with us today. Please accept, of course, our best wishes in the election in this next week. And everybody, please, please, please vote. As our event closes, I want to invite members and guests to join us on Wednesday, February 26th, when we host Susanna Pierce, former president and country chair of Shell Canada, who will discuss Canada's oil and gas industry. Next Thursday, the 27th, I will sit down with Mitzi Hunter, CEO of Canadian Women's Foundation, to celebrate International Women's Day. All the details on canadianclub.org. Thank you, as always, to VBC Live, our AV supplier, for supporting our event, and thank you all for being here online and in person. Please come again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.